Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras here with ILTV's Morning Briefing.
Amidst ongoing rioting along the Gaza border overnight Tuesday, a company commander with the Israeli paratroopers unit was lightly wounded by Hamas sniper fire. Thankfully, however, the bullet only grazed the soldier's helmet and he was released from the hospital hours later. Meanwhile, during those same riots, 5 Palestinian suspects attempted to breach the security fence with Israel, 2 of whom were successful, though the group turned around as fast as they entered. Still, the IDF responded immediately to the above incidents with tank shellings of a Hamas post in the Strip, injuring at least 2 Hamas members and killing a 3rd. Then the Air Force launched a series of strikes against various Hamas targets in Gaza as well. Then finally, as a final punitive measure against violence in the Strip, Prime Minister and Defense Minister Netanyahu ordered that the 3rd Qatari installment of $15 million to Hamas in Gaza be halted en route. The payment was already approved, however, and Hamas officials speaking to the Times of Israel said that, quote, Netanyahu's decision to prevent their entry is a crime that will push Gaza towards an explosion, end quote. Further, speaking to Army Radio on Wednesday morning, former Shin Bet head Yaakov Peri says Israel should allow the Qatari funding as well because, quote, Hamas will not become a lover of Israel because of this money or the lack thereof. So Israel needs to act according to its own interest, which is to avoid confrontation. If the same Qatari funds cause a confrontation not to occur, the broader consideration must prevail, end quote. Still, allowing millions of dollars to enter untraceably into Gaza for use by the Hamas terror group is not a popular decision, especially as Hamas has never relinquished its vow to destroy the Jewish state and rarely desists from violent acts anyway. The Syrian ambassador to the United Nations has just threatened on Tuesday to attack Ben Gurion International Airport near Tel Aviv in response to Israel's aerial strikes earlier this week in Damascus. Speaking at a UN Security Council meeting on the Middle East in New York, the Syrian envoy Bashar Jafari called on the UN to prevent any further Israeli airstrikes on Syria. He asked, quote, "Isn't it high time for this council to take the necessary measures to stop the repeated Israeli aggression against the territories of my country? Or should we attract the attention of the war makers in this council by exercising our legitimate right to self-defense and respond to the Israeli aggression against the Damascus International Civil Airport by launching an aggression of our own against the Tel Aviv airport?" End quote. He also then criticized permanent UN Security Council members, the United States, the UK, and France, who he said are partners and supporters of Israel in its aggressions. He added that the UN Security Council would end up being irrelevant, like the League of Nations before it, should it not act against Israel. Now, while Israel has hit thousands of targets in Syria in recent years in an attempt to curb Iranian and Hezbollah activities in the country, Syria has almost never responded. But the Syrian envoy's remarks at the UN coincide with another unusual event, the launching of an Iranian surface-to-surface missile into the Golan Heights on Sunday, which was intercepted by the Iron Dome missile defense system over a Mount Hermon ski resort. This is what prompted Israel to launch strikes on Iranian targets near Damascus, including at the Damascus International Airport. This unusual activity from Iran and Syria, however, has led some experts in the defense establishment to believe that Iran is stepping up its response to Israeli attacks in light of the end of the Syrian civil war and the United States troop withdrawal from the country. Yet thankfully, experts also say that the possibility that this will escalate into a full-out war is still quite low. The Israeli BERESHEET or Genesis spacecraft has now finally arrived at the Cape Canaveral Air Force Base in Florida, from where it's set to be launched to the moon next month. And according to Ido Antebi, the CEO of SpaceIL, which led the project, the craft is more than ready for its mission. Last month, after the final components were added and tests were completed, SpaceIL and IAI engineers together prepared the craft for its final transfer to Florida. And in a statement released last week, Antebi said that after 8 years of hard work, quote, "Our dream has come true. We finally have a spacecraft, and shipping the spacecraft to the US is the first stage of a complicated and historic journey to the moon. This is the first of many exciting moments as we look forward to the forthcoming launch in Cape Canaveral," end quote. Now, the BERESHEET spacecraft stands at about 1.5 meters or around 5 feet tall, and it has 4 carbon fiber legs. It's also equipped with many measurement tools, including a device to measure magnetic fields, and it'll also be Israel's first longer-range Israeli spacecraft of this type. But most importantly, it was also given the, quote, "best of humanity" to hold on to, a digital time capsule containing children's drawings, photos, songs, and other such information on human culture and history. And after taking off from Florida in the next month or so, the capsule will then remain on the moon for years, if not decades. Finally, the capsule is scheduled to launch on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket, but is set to arrive in a so-called soft landing. If successful, Israel would be the 4th country to ever carry out this type of descent into the surface of the moon with an unmanned craft, following the United States, China, and Russia.
That's all for now. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.